welcome to Badger Tough Inside the Circle. I'm assistant coach Craig Pokorny, joined as always by Hall of Fame head coach Alan Pokorny. We're here every week, well, except last week, to run down the week of Bennington Wrestling, in this case the last 2 weeks of Bennington Wrestling, and give everybody a preview of what's to come in the next week. Just a reminder, you can always send us questions and shoot Coach an email, shoot us a tweet, or give us a call or a text or whatever. And if you want an answer on the show, we can always answer it. As always this year, the show is brought to you by Midwest Designs, midwestdesigns.org. If you want to get on now to get those clear bags before state, I would recommend doing it this week, or send me a message or send it through the website. But if you're looking for a clear bag for state, you better try to get it in this week, because if someone orders it early next week, it might be cutting it kind of close for Thursday next week. So midwestdesigns.org. I'm gonna start things off with a little recap of the past week, and then
past 2 weeks,
past 2 weeks, and then preview the upcoming week, which is pretty much districts, and go from there. We don't really have no state duels wild card update, because state duels just happened yesterday. So one thing off the list while we have.
Well, you could mention where we end up 13th out of that, which, all things considered, where we were at to start the season off, I thought was good, and the strength of schedule we have, I thought was good for where we finished. So that was a positive thing.
Right. And then, we had fellow EMC school Blair winning Class B. So kind of goes to, show how tough our conference is. So
yeah, when we've been there a few times and competed there and brought 3 trophies home so far from there, from the state duels. So familiar with it, state duels. And, one thing I noticed when we were competing in it, that I thought the EMC conference dual tournament was as tougher, probably death-wise tougher than actually the state duels, which, really shows for our conference. And it's no surprise Blair wins it. And that's good for our conference and shows how tough it really is.
Right. So normally we do a little recap of the past week, anything coming up in practice the last couple weeks, or how things have been going. How are you seeing things as we wind the season down and guys are getting ready for the end of the season?
Well, I thought this week we did a little bit better job in practice overall, a little better intensity, better practice than the previous week before the EMC tournament, and I thought that it showed. I mean, when you have good weeks of practice, you compete good on the weekend. When you have bad weeks, you don't compete as well. And we were telling the kids this, and hopefully they're seeing that now, and that's something we'll remind them about again. And we have been reminding them constantly, and hopefully they see this now. And you can go back. It's not just us. You remember last fall, Scott Frost talking about, from week to week, they had a good practice, good week of practice, and they played better. When he said they didn't, I mean, it was almost a prediction. You'd be hearing in the news Thursday and Friday night how they're practicing, and in his tone and what he said seemed to be how they performed on the weekend. And same with us. I thought the week before EMC we didn't have a good week of practice. I don't know if just middle of the season, getting towards the end, kids are getting bored and not focusing like they should, or what. But it just wasn't a good week, and I don't think we performed as well as we could have in the Papillion Duel or the EMC conference tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought this last week they picked it up a little bit and had a better week, and I thought we performed pretty well overall yesterday. So just goes to show, and hopefully that carries over in these next 2 weeks, the practices.
So going back about a week and a half, we hosted Papillion La Vista for Parents' Night, Senior Night, nice duel at home. Thought there was a chance we could pull off a win there, but
Yeah,
wasn't quite so.
looking at the lineups and where we're at, and one of the things we look at is you gotta pretty much you gotta win 7 out of the 14 matches, and in any duel to have a chance of winning, and it's pretty difficult to win less than that and win. So looking at it, I thought we had a chance in 7 of them. There's 3 or 4 of those were probably toss-up ones, and basically we had to wrestle a perfect duel,
Right.
to pull it off, and obviously it didn't happen, and I didn't think we wrestled our best. Now that's not taking anything away from Papillion La Vista. They're a great team. They're ranked 6th right now in Class A, and they were 3rd in the Metro Conference, which is very, very tough when you consider the 2 teams ahead of them were top 2 teams all class. So they're a very, very tough team, and we didn't win the duel, obviously. I guess I don't remember what the score was. It's been so long.
Yeah, I can't really bring it up right now. Track's down right now, it looks like. So I was looking to pull that information up. Yep, their site's totally down right now.
Yeah, that's.
So maybe they'll come back in the middle of the show as we're recapping things to help.
Yeah, we might have to go through our heads and figure things out here.
Yeah.
But and it wasn't a terrible duel or anything, but I thought we could have done a little better in a couple little places,
mm-hmm.
and as the season progresses, we want to continue getting better, and I feel they are. The kids have came a long ways, but we still got a long ways to go yet, and not much time.
Right.
So it's pretty much about that duel.
Yeah, it's having to think back a little further now when we do it 2 weeks away. But this past week we had the JV had to Scott. I wasn't able to go there and see much of the wrestling.
Yeah, and that was kind of a different type of event. It wasn't really a tournament. It wasn't a duel, but they matched kids up, based off ability and age, and tried to get some good matchups, and talking with Blaze, because Blaze and Brady both got to go.
Mm-hmm.
He thought they wrestled well and overall, and nothing major report out of it or nothing terrible, but thought overall things went well with that. So, anytime they get some mat time, that's great experience for those guys.
Right. So then, I guess going back to last weekend, we touched briefly on it with the EMC tournament. Hosted at Waverly this year. So we went to Waverly for the EMC duels and the tournament this year. A little different than normal, just because it's their year on the rotation.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, that the duels, the EMC duels, are always at Waverly, and that goes way back to when they started the dual tournament. Waverly, they looked for a weekend to host it, and Waverly had a tournament that weekend, and so they agreed that if they could host it every year, that they would give up their home tournament, and so that's how they got that. But the individual tournament travels. Each team takes turns and hosts it, and we hosted a couple years ago, and it'll be a few years before we host it again, but it does rotate, so each year you get to go to a different place. But as far as the tournament went, as I kind of alluded to it earlier, I didn't think it was our best performance of the year, and a lot of it has to do with the competition we're dealing with.
Right.
The MC is very tough. It's no question. It's by far the best conference in the entire state in Class B, and so you got to wrestle your best. And our guys are really coming along. We ended up with 6 medalists, and I believe we had 11 guys still in contention for medals in the consolation semis, and couldn't quite get them through, or maybe it was 11, or I think it was 9 actually in the semifinals, and then we had 2 more that were in the championship. So that's where I got the 11 from. But so if we win some of those, win a few more than we did, we end up losing 5 of those matches, and a couple of those were really close. And if we can pull off some wins, a couple more wins in there, and it changes our team place from 6th place to possibly 3rd.
Right.
It was that close. But like I said, our conference is real tough. And the kids are coming along, but it's difficult. And a couple of good examples. We had Hunter Anderson at 106. He was actually leading his match against an experienced kid. The Aiden Hall from Gretna is actually a former Bennington kid. He wrestled in our club for many years, and the family moved out to Gretna, and probably shouldn't have, but but anyhow, so we know him real well, and the kid's been wrestling since he's been about 5 years old, and Hunter's just got a year under his belt, and he was actually winning the match, and got caught in a headlock, and even though we've worked on how to get out of those things, and he's still still learning, and got to recognize that right away, and he ended up getting pinned. So there's a match where he's winning, and if he finishes off without getting caught, he's got a conference medal, and that helps us out. Then you look at 113, Walker's, got a kid that's from Waverly who's, I don't know the kid's history, but he certainly has a much better record percentage-wise than Walker. And Walker's right in the match and ends up losing 2-1, a close, hard-fought match that if he could just score, a takedown, a reversal somewhere, some little thing, changes that match, and he's got a conference medal. And again, our team's moving on up, from that. And, and so a couple things like that, going through, Matthew Coe, and I may skip over a couple of people because we're trying to save a little time. I don't want to keep you here all night. Some people want to get onto the Super Bowl, watch the Super Bowl tonight, so you don't want to start conflicting with that. Yep. Be here all night. But
although it could make it for a nice long workout for those that listen to the podcast at the gym afterward.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Dan Minke was telling me that when last week we weren't going to have the podcast, that he was disappointed because he usually listens to a podcast that works out. So he's going to have to work out extra long this week, and maybe he'll lose a couple extra pounds this week because he has to work out longer. But anyhow, back to this, Matthew Coe ended up 4th place, which is very good for Matthew. He keeps coming along. And even in his 3rd place match, he had a kid that beat him pretty good earlier in the year in the duels, and it's Brody Carls from Blair, and Matthew was right in that match the whole time. He ended up losing 4-1, but it was very close. And, if he doesn't give up a takedown in one situation and gets a takedown instead, he wins the match.
Yep.
That's all it is. That's just it's that close. So that's real good for Matthew, showing how much he's improving and coming along, and again, improving faster than our opponents, which we like to see. Robert, he ended up 4th place also. He lost to Bashes from Plattsmouth, but he beat Bashes earlier in the tournament. It's one of those things where he beat him early in the tournament and then lost to him later. In the duels, he lost to him there. So those two guys are real close, and that's going to be a match that he's going to need to win, and at districts, to make the state. Because looking at his bracket, there's a lot of solid, tough guys in there that. There's probably 6 or 7 guys that could qualify to state, at almost any district, and he's right. One of those, and he needs to beat a guy like that. The good thing is, we've got some film. We've been talking about it, and showed him what things he did in the first match that he won, they did right, and also reviewed the second match that he lost and the differences between the two, and I think he sees what we need to work on, and I'm not going to give out any secrets because I don't want them to know if they're listening in, but anyhow, he's just going to have to win those matches, tight matches like that. So hopefully that can happen. Next, we got Colby Puck, finished third. He's also in a very similar situation to Robert when it comes to districts, where in both cases, just looking at what we got, I think both those guys are going to be seeded sixth at districts. So they only take the top four. So they're going to have to beat some people that are ahead of them seeding wise, to make it the state. And so in same thing with him. He lost in the semifinals. He lost a match to Plattsmouth, and he did lose to him earlier in the year also at the duels, but he's not far away. He ended up getting pinned in the end on that, but it was actually very, very close and all the way to the end, and then ended up getting put on his back and pinned right at the end. I mean, there's 7 seconds left or something like that. Again, we need to make some improvements there, and of course, having the film that helps, and we're planning on going over that with him this week, and so anyhow, he's gonna need to step up a little bit the districts to do it. But anyhow, getting third, if he wins that match, he's in for first and second, and then against a kid from Blair who beat him earlier this year, but again another close match. So obviously both those guys are in a district tournament, and he's going to have to beat one or both of them to make it the state. So anyhow, going to skip over to Luke McDonald. He finished second at the conference tournament. Avenged the earlier loss to the Nelson from Norris, which was good. He wrestled them much better. When Luke wrestled Nelson at AMC Duels, Nelson pretty much handled him and handed it to him, and pinned him. And it wasn't like, hey, he got caught in something and pinned. It was like he was being dominated and pinned, and which was kind of discouraging. But Luke did a nice job, and part of it why Luke sometimes struggles, and what he struggled with in that match, that Norris kid, was being a freshman and having success in middle school. He's used to horsing guys over, and you can't do that in high school. Especially when you're a freshman,
right.
The maturity level and the strength is something to get you. So you really got to focus on technique, and that's what we've been working with him all year and driving into him. And he wrestled Nelson much better and beat him this time, and so that was great to see. How far he came since earlier in the year. Then he ran into a buzzsaw in the championship match at Canoia from Waverly, and
he's pretty big and strong.
Yeah, I think everybody knows who he is. If you don't know his name, you will recognize him. He's about 4'2", and about his arms are big as anybody's legs. I mean, the kid spends a lot of time in the weight room and works hard in there, and very strong, and so it was just way too much for Luke. But anyhow, great conference tournament for Luke to finish second to him. Kind of skimming over here, Logan Burmester came a match away from getting a medal also, but his weight class was really, really tough, and the kid who beat him was pretty darn good there. Then going to Buzz, Buzz ended up third place in the semifinals. Let's see. Yeah, there's the semifinals. He ended up getting pinned by a Gretna kid, and that's one that he was winning, and got caught and pinned, and it's something that Buzz needs to work on to fix. It's a position he gets into, and again, I'm not going to give it away for anybody out there listening. It's not Bennington people, which who knows who's out there, but it's caught him a couple times this year that needs to work on, and we're running out of time. So anyhow, and it happened again this weekend too. But he was winning that match and then got caught and pinned there, but he did a nice job of coming back through and pinning his way through and finishing third place, and and obviously any place in the conference tournament, anytime you place in our conference tournament, that's a great accomplishment for him. In Benton's comes one match away from a medal, and the match he lost in the consolation semifinals is to a rated wrestler, and so Benton's kind of hot and cold at times, and to be honest, I think he was one of those that didn't have a good week of practice, and it kind of looked like it when he wrestled. But he turned it around. I saw this week, I watched, and I even made a comment to Coach Galinsky too, that he's having a much better week of practice. And it was a good week for him, and that's something we'll bring up too this week and say, see, look, hey, you have a great week and you'll wrestle better. And
yep.
And he did. And last week at the EMC, he didn't wrestle very well. Lost to Rutkowski from Blair, but lost to him. And Rutkowski's a state qualifier last year and currently ranked in Class B. So quality opponent. But then again, we like to win those and get a medal. And certainly there's another. That's the third guy that's real close to getting a medal that didn't get a medal, that maybe should have, or if we done something a little different here or there. And in his case too, just a different. He gets a takedown instead of his opponent. He wins that match.
Yep.
And 3 more medals obviously gives us. That's where I thought that we do that. We're sitting third, behind Gretna, who's Class A, and Blair, who obviously is dual state champions, and so they're very deep, and so it's just a fine line in the EMC between really all the way across the board.
Yeah, if you don't wrestle your best at that tournament, it's the whole across the team. Everybody doesn't wrestle their best. It's gonna show in the standings.
Sure.
So you can't take a day off in the EMC.
Yeah. And then Garrett at 220 finished second. He lost to Plasmith in a tight match. Garrett got the win at the duels, and some people in Plasmith thought he was lucky there. Garrett put him on his back, caught him on his back for some back points in the duels, and got a good lead and was able to hang on to a win there. And so Pfeiffer from Plasmith is a returning state medalist. Garrett's a non-qualifier, and so Garrett. That shows how far Garrett's came. He's from last year to where we're at now, that he's caught up to, a state medalist. And here in this match, it ended up being 8-4, but there were 3 situations that Garrett was in deep on shots, and and Pfeiffer does a nice job of cutting the corner on him, and Garrett's kind of struggling with finishing it properly, but that's something that we're working on too. And again, we have film on it. We also talked to him about it, and I noticed he did get in that situation a time or two this last weekend and finished it right. So hopefully he's getting better at it, finishing that situation. But that's also a different type of opponent. He finished it on. He's going to have to do everything right the next time wrestle. But the positive is that I thought that he out-wrestled him as far as he had better opportunities to score. The other kid just, that Pfeiffer looked more like he was wrestling mad.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right way to put it or not, but he was upset that he got beat the last time, and he wanted, and it was all out revenge. And
Right.
and Garrett's going out there just wrestling, and that's one thing that Garrett probably needs to learn too, is the intensity and also the mental part. The other kid was, he's a state medalist. He expects to win, and Garrett's a guy who didn't qualify last year, and his wrestling has raised to the level of state, my opinion, a high state medalist, and any high state medalist top 4 is definitely state champion caliber. If Garrett wrestles his best, he can win a state title this year.
Yep.
And has proven it by the guys he's wrestled. No one's beaten him by more than 4 points. Other than getting caught in pin, but he got revenge on that guy.
Right.
in the conference tournament, pinned him back. But that was one of those relaxed, got caught. Oh crud! Here we go.
Yep.
But that won't happen again. I don't believe Garrett's too smart for that. Anyhow, I was encouraged by the match, even though we lost it. Disappointed we couldn't finish those situations. But the positive is, I think we're in there. Garrett needs to work on the mental part, that wrestle like a state champion, not only technique-wise, but also in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
with the confidence of a state champion. That's where he's got to get to. If he does that, I think he can win state. I mean, I'm putting it out there. But he does have some good ones out there to beat. And Pfeiffer's certainly one of those.
And he'll see Pfeiffer again probably at districts.
Yep.
Hopefully district finals.
Yeah, in fact, it'll probably be a very similar semifinals setup where Pfeiffer would, based off of criteria, Pfeiffer is probably going to be seeded number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett's probably 2, and that Blair kid's probably 3. So if everything works out the way it normally does, those, Garrett will be meeting the Blair kid in the semis again.
Yep.
To see who wrestles Pfeiffer, but we'll just see how it works out.
Yep.
And then our last one, Aiden, was also one match away from earning a conference medal, and Aiden's come a long ways, and he's got a long ways to go yet too, and he really wants to get better. He really wants to work hard, and he does. He started listening and wrestling better since he's been back off his injury, and so. While it hasn't shown as much in the wins and loss columns, it's been showing on the mat. The kid that beat him to get a medal is a decent wrestler, and early in the year when Aiden wrestled him, the guy trounced Aiden and pinned him. And this time Aiden got beat for a decent amount, but he was in a battle.
Right.
So he's showing improvement and has a long ways to go yet, and has a potential too, because he's still young and not physically mature yet. That when that stuff comes along, things will blossom quick and change quickly. And if he keeps doing what he's doing, trying to learn, he always wants to stay after, and sometimes it's difficult because we got so much going on that. Or if we're like for Badger Leeds on Mondays, there's no one to wrestle him. So,
right.
But we give him things. I've given him things he could do to work on by himself if he wants to,
Mm-hmm.
or with a coach with him, and so hopefully from there he continues to get better, and I'm sure he will.
Yep. So once again, team took 6th in the standings at EMC. Like I said, a couple matches here or there. Away from all the way up to 3rd, so
yeah, and I know that it doesn't sound good and doesn't feel good either.
Right.
But again, it's just so close.
Yep.
That our conference. I mean, even the last place team is not a bad team.
Right.
So it's conference is tough, and like I said, we were so close in so many positions that would have changed a lot, and a lot of those guys just they've came a long ways, but we're still not there yet.
Yep. So this weekend, a little change of plans from the original schedule in the year. We didn't go to Lexington with that weather a couple weeks ago, so we were able to get into the Norfolk Catholic invite. Nice, I don't know, brought back a lot of memories of when we were in Class C. Norfolk Catholic's traditionally dominant school in all sports in Class C. I mean, we're in their gym looking at all their state championship and state runner-up banners that they got along that wall, and it's pretty impressive how much they've got up there. So they're always tough, and it's nice to be able to get in. They said they had a lot of schools interested in getting in with the weather and everything else that happened this season. So it was real good to get into that tournament.
Yeah, they said that I think they turned down 4 or 5 teams because they were maxing out at 10, and that's what they had. So we're lucky to get in, and lucky we jumped on it early.
Right.
As soon as I started knowing about the weather, I started talking with them, and in case something happened, and we got lucky there. But otherwise, we'd have been just sitting at home waiting, and I think this was good for us. We needed this week.
Yep.
To have some competition, considering where we're at. And normally we have this open simply because our expectations are being the state duels.
Right.
I think in the future we will many times. Just this year we weren't quite there yet.
Yep.
Obviously, like I said, we finished 13th. But looking at our experience level, that was pretty good, and give us a year or two, and who knows, that may change. We may be in top 8 and be going.
Yep. So it seemed like going back to, we talked about practice being better this past week, and it really kind of showed while we were there. Guys wrestled a lot better, I thought. It was nice we were able to bring our JVs and fill in as many brackets as we could to fill them up, and really as a team wrestled pretty well. Say 15 medalists came away with.
Yeah, 15 medalists, 5 are champions. We're close again on a couple other that could have been champions. We finished with 212 points as a team, which was 62 points ahead of the second place team. So that's a big gap. And the thing is too, we weren't full strength. I was pretty worried going in that we're not going to win this one. And not that this wasn't an important one to win, but it's just, I knew we had a good shot, that it would be nice to since we're there, to win it. And you don't want to blow it because you don't wrestle well or something like that. But we had some situations come up this week that a couple guys couldn't go, and then a couple of our varsity guys, starters, weren't able to go, and then also we another one of our varsity starters was sick and really battled through things, but didn't perform as well as he normally would.
Right.
I thought, but all that considered, I mean, we would have scored a lot more points. So that means the other guys really stepped up and did well, and so real pleased to see that this part of the season. And like you're saying, it was, I feel a lot of it was, the good week of practice we had, really helped, because you have a good week, you can continue to get better and continue to get better. And a good week, you're also, drilling the moves right and executing properly in practice. And that's what carries over into meet. If you're out in practice, lollygagging around, not drilling properly, so therefore your technique is sloppy, then all of a sudden you get into a match and you revert back to what your practice habits are, and you're sloppy, and that's going to hurt you. And to be quite honest, and no disrespect to any teams, it wasn't exactly the toughest tournament out there. There were some good teams in there, and what I told the guys going into it too, and even right before we wrestled was, on paper, some of these teams don't have big numbers as far as participants. Some of them had 8 or 10 guys out there wrestling, where we got all 14 weights full. Even though we're missing some, we shuffled some guys around.
Right.
But anyhow, there were some teams like Norfolk Catholic has a great history of being successful in wrestling, and they were state champs a few years back. O'Neill was there; they were state champs in Class C. Both these,
Right.
only about 3 or 4 years ago, and so some quality teams there, or some quality programs, let's say, and you don't just the coaches just don't forget how to coach if they teach them to win state. It's the thing when you're a small school, and we went through this too, especially in the 90s, and smaller schools, sometimes you have the kids and sometimes you don't, and when you're in a school district where you can't pull from a big metro area or bigger area, you have your ups and downs, and sometimes, and Bennington's no different. I mean, we may be right next to a metro area, but we are limited by our boundaries, and this district doesn't take kids outside of our district because of our growth. So we all are in the same situation where we're not going to be pulling in extra kids, and that's where they're at. O'Neill are well coached. I know that. Same thing, Norfolk Catholic, and some of those other teams in there, and we had Norris as the EMC team. In fact, Norris was a team who finished second, and EMC cleaned up there too.
Right.
Cleaned up at the Norfolk Catholic, took all the trophies from there, and Crete's a solid team. They, we beat them pretty good early in the year, but they were missing some quality individuals, and they're actually probably a team that'll finish higher than us at state. It would be my guess right now because of some of the individuals they have. Unless we perform better than expected. And I guess that's my expectations, to perform better than other people expect. But anyhow, there were quality individuals there, and maybe the teams don't have the depth to compete overall. With us having 14 weights filled, and then our guys wrestled real well.
And then with our JVs in there, even though they didn't score, they'd go every time they won, they knock someone else out from scoring or take away points from others. So,
right,
another helpful part there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we talked about too. Is we wanted our guys who were JV. I said, well, I wanted you guys, even though you're JV and you're non-scorers, there's two things to remember. You can still win this tournament, and you get the bracket, and you get the medal, and you're the champion. That's number one. And number two is you're going to help our team out if you knock somebody out. If you knock one of the other teams that were in contention out of a medal, you score a lot of points getting medals. You don't score a lot of points if you don't get a medal. We found that out at conference.
Yeah.
We knew it before, but it happened to us at conference. So knocking other teams out are going to help our team. So, everybody that went, I think we ended up with 25 guys going or something like that. Every single one of those guys contributed to the team. And so I was really happy with that and proud of our guys that we had a chance to wrestle all together and help each other. And it was kind of fun too. Some of those matches, I don't remember specifically which ones they were, but I noticed we had almost our whole team down Matt's side screaming and hooting and hollering and all excited about some of the, some of our guys, even some of our JV guys. They were really excited for them, cheering them on, and so that was a lot of fun to have our guys cheering each other on like that, and all together in the same tournament, so that was really nice and pretty exciting, and we had a good crowd there. I noticed that, and real appreciative of the parents and fans that made the trip, the 2-hour trip up there, and so it was a fun environment and a fun day, but don't expect to be back there because plan to be in Kearney for state duels and having fun there in the future. But so anyhow, as we talked about the team, we won pretty easily. I guess we can go individual wise. Starting off, we'll start at the bottom and work our way up. as normal. Hunter Anderson wins his first high school championship ever. And Hunter's. We've already talked about him a little bit earlier, that he's a guy that's really coming on, getting better all the time, and really came a long ways from. I remember the first match he wrestled this year for us to now. It's night and day, and last year, he never wrestled until last year. He started in 8th grade, so real happy for him to win the tournament and pinned everybody on the way to do it. So that was great for Hunter. Walker also won his first high school championship ever. So 2 freshmen there that won their first championship, ever in a high school tournament, and Walker had a real good tournament. Walker's one of those that needs some confidence, and really in the finals match, he wrestled like he was confident. The kid had a much better record than him, percentage wise, and anybody that would look at the 2 records would say, well, this is going to be an easy one for the kid from Fillmore Central, and it wasn't. Walker was up 7-0. Then all of a sudden he made a big mistake that cost him 6 total points.
Locked hands and
also hung on all the way to his back for reversal to his back. So, but he fought off his back and kept wrestling and ended up winning 10-8 out of that. But obviously 6 of those points he pretty much handed it to the guy, and hopefully he learns from that. But anyhow, great tournament for him to win it, and certainly those 2 guys scored a lot of points for us. Then we had Dawson Frost at 113, and Dawson's been JV all year for us, and Dawson got 4th, which is great for him. And if you look at where Dawson was at a year ago, and even 2 years ago, he did start in 7th grade, to where he's now. It's just tremendous how far he's came.
One thing I've noticed about Dawson is, he's been getting after it more and more and more throughout the season. I noticed it at the Elkhorn JV tournament where he just something clicked and he wrestles more aggressively and with a little bit of sometimes almost like with a chip on his shoulder. And when he does that, man, he gets after kids. So it's real good to see him come along and get placed at a varsity tournament.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You mentioned it right, varsity tournament. These guys that they beat, they have varsity experience. They've been wrestling all year long in varsity tournaments, and so they got varsity experience. So this is great for our JVs to get in there and compete against varsity kids. And so, but yeah, you mentioned Dawson, how he's wrestling, and we talked earlier about practice habits and both him and Hunter are partners, and they really get after it in practice. So, that's where you see the improvements. So if some of those other kids want to see where 2 guys are really improving a lot throughout the year, just watch those 2 guys go at it in practice. And I almost have to settle them down that they're almost going too hard when they're supposed to be drilling and drilling their technique. And, anyhow, that's great for Dawson. And again, it goes back to his work ethic is why he's coming so far and getting better all the time. Then we can move on to Gavin, and Gavin had a real good tournament too. Gavin finished 3rd, and Gavin's a kid who just never quits during his matches. He'll keep wrestling, and let's see. I'm looking back here where he ended up losing.
He lost in the quarters the Mount Michael kid, and if I remember right, it was one where he either had the kid on his back or dang near had him a couple times, if I remember right.
Yeah, it was a real close match, because that kid had a much better record than us, looking at it, and thinking that this is probably not going to go well for us. But it ended up being a real tight, close match, and yeah, he ended up getting pinned in the end. But it was very close. Then he came back and won a couple matches. Got a couple pins to get into the third and fourth, and then end up getting a pin in for at third place. And Gavin's a guy who he never quits out there. He's even when he's down, he's kind of a dangerous wrestler,
Right.
and that's why he's getting the pins because he never quits. And some of those guys don't understand that they're like, I'm winning, you should be giving up, and then all of a sudden, they relax in a situation, and Gavin puts them on their back, and Gavin's got some good leverage that he's a pretty good pinner, and so that's the thing I like about Gavin. He just never quits, and he's coming along too, and certainly needs more time to grow physically, and also continue to develop technique to get to where he's really highly successful, and right now I think he's doing real good for where he's at, and certainly with more time and experience, he's going to be a lot better down the road. Then we got Lucas Peterson was there wrestling. Lucas is a new wrestler to our program, very new, and he's works hard in the room, just needs to gain experience and physical maturity, and because he's pretty young, and unfortunately Gavin was the one who knocked him out of the tournament. Yep. So nothing we do about that. It was unfortunate that we had these two guys wrestle each other. I didn't mean to say unfair, but unfortunate, because they lose at different times. They cross back it into each other. You can't predict past the first round, if you stay on the winning side, you can't really predict it if you lose where you're going to fall.
Right.
Unfortunately, two guys wrestled each other, and one had to win and one had to lose. So that's how that ended there. Then we go up to 26. We got Matthew Coe. Matthew, he's the one that I mentioned earlier that he's been battling an illness all week, and still had trouble out there. In fact, we had to take injury time in a couple of his matches because he's struggling to breathe out there, and he at one point he's like, I can't feel my arms; they're so weak, and it's like, well, either you forfeit right here or you keep wrestling. Right. Choice, and so it was a tough day for him. And it's not that he wrestled bad either. I mean, he was in on some matches that were against some pretty good kids. The
kid from O'Neill that he lost to in the semis won the tournament, and
right,
really got caught for a 5-point move in the first period when he was in and deep.
Right, he was in a nice deep shot, and the kid has a nice counter that Matthew wasn't ready for, and not too many guys are. I mean, it's a move that I've seen Andy put on college guys.
Yeah.
In fact, it helped Andy get a 4th place medal at the Big
12
Big 12's championships that one year. Put the Missouri kid on his back with it. So it's you think you're in deep, and that's why you got to finish the moves right away. When you get in a deep shot, you can't waste time. If you hesitate, the good ones are going to counter somehow. And unfortunately, this guy has a nice little cutback that he put. It takes a single leg. You feel you're real great shape, and all of a sudden, boom, you're on your back. And you may ask, well, why don't we teach that? Well, we've shown it to guys. Usually, we look at their level of experience before we show it, because if you're going to rely on this when you're young, you want to learn the basics first. And if you rely on this, some people are good at it and some aren't. Right. It's like laterals. Well, I show a lateral. Well, because some guys can do it and some guys can't.
Well, and it's one of those too where you got to be, the position you're in is almost taken down. Right. So we teach a lot of things to not even get that to that point. Stop the takedown before that.
Right.
So.
and and that's not going to work on all the great ones all the time.
Right.
You can catch somebody once in a while, but once they know you're doing it, they're going to stop it.
Yep.
So, Andy did it on the college guys, but I guarantee they wrestle again. The guy's going to be ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Would he get it? Maybe, maybe not. But anyhow, so yeah, Matthew gave up 5-point move there, loses 7-0. If he doesn't give up that, he gets the takedown. That instead of that would take 5 points away from them. Now he's 2-0. Matthew's takedown, it's 2-2. It's tied going into overtime.
Yep.
And obviously other things could happen in that match that would change that too. But anyhow, so he lost a tough one there, and that was one of those where he had to take some injury time because, he was so weak and because of the being sick and you may wonder why he's out there wrestling that way. Well, he was cleared to wrestle by the doctor and he was cleared to go to school and everything. And we're like, well, we don't know how he's going to react until he gets out there. And we had one practice, and that's not an intense practice. On Friday, it's more of drilling and, working on technique and getting our weight off. Because we're trying to taper and be ready as we can for Saturday. And so, he didn't have intense practice there. And because he went to the doctor on Thursday night, I wanted to make sure he was out. He was out, I think, Tuesday or something like that. And then Wednesday we had that cold day. And Thursday he came to practice. And I didn't let him practice with anybody because I didn't want him to get anybody sick and kind of worried about that. And said, hey, if there's any way you can get to a doctor, and see where you're at with this. And he went Thursday night, and that's when they said, he's got an upper respiratory thing that he's got to deal with, but they were confident that he could go. So anyhow, then in the consolation semifinals to get in for a medal there, and he had a pretty tough kid. The kid who was seeded third, and Isaac was one that knocked him off, that beat him to knock him down to the wrestlebacks, which, that's one where our team probably hurt. Our teammate hurt our other teammate. And that's okay because Isaac got in the finals then. Right. But, just a situation where if it was a normal tournament, Isaac was seeded 11th, and that's only because it being a varsity tournament, they take in consideration varsity records, not necessarily JV records, but they talked about that, but they ended up seeding him anyhow 11th, and so Isaac was sitting in normally your 11th seed's not going to knock off your number 3 if it's a regular tournament, and so Matthew probably would have walked into a medal there, got a medal there. But ended up having to wrestle a number 3 seeded guy who has a very, very good record, much better record than what Matthews has. And Matthew had a good match with him, ended up losing by 2 points. And again, we were in a situation where we were taking injury time. And I don't like taking injury time, for a guy that's struggling with breathing. Usually that's when you're out of shape. But Matthew's not out of shape. And it's just a situation he's in with his illness, and hopefully that clears up quickly here. But so he ended up losing a close one by 2, and, kind of for him, that's tough. He's had a great season, and certainly would have medaled here, I think, and who knows, maybe even won the tournament if he was healthy, or what I was hoping for is Isaac and him be in the finals, and then those two guys wrestle for first and second. That'd be great. We just sit back and watch and enjoy. But anyhow, so he ended up not medaling, but overall wrestling well considering what he was dealing with, and in a week that could be much better. So hopefully it is. We got Phoenix came up there and wrestled, and he had a tough kid to start with and lost to him and came back and had another, and these are varsity guys he's wrestling against. He ended up losing 12-5, and he got beat out and didn't place. But Phoenix is a guy that I've seen a lot of improvement since he started in 7th grade, and I see a lot of good things in him. In the practice room especially, his technique, and he's got a good attitude and work ethic, and but it's not totally translating over to the mat yet in competition, and a lot of that has to do with the confidence level, and you see that out of kids that are new, that you start seeing the technique in practice. You see good things in practice, but in competition it's not coming through because they're not 100% comfortable, 100% confident. Right. And I think once he starts getting confident in his technique and moves, and he's gonna really blossom. He's gonna be another Matthew Coe that last year you're just like, yeah, he's looking good in practice, but he gets in a match and in a competition and it's not the same. Matthew made big jumps this year, and I think that's going to happen to Phoenix soon, because he has a great work ethic and in not only in the wrestling room but also in the weight room. I think I mentioned that once before about him, and seeing him last fall when I watched the weight room, was really pleased with that. So moving on, and it looks like we're going past an hour here, so
yeah, well, we said double duty.
Yep. So Dan's gonna get a good workout this week.
Yep.
Anyhow, next we got Isaac. Isaac, he missed the first part of the season with injury from football, and kind of struggled to start with a little bit. Not terrible, but you could see he wasn't there. But right now he's wrestling about where as good as it has all year, and looking good. Mm-hmm. Like I said, he was 11th seed, mainly because he's got a 0-1 varsity record coming in, and his one loss was to a highly rated wrestler in Class A, and gave him a good match.
Yeah.
So he's a dangerous guy, and I tried warning him a little bit about it, but I did want Isaac and Matthew on the opposite sides of the bracket so that we had a chance to meet in the finals if possible. But they didn't listen to my warning, so when they did the seedings. So Isaac went, and he was seeded 11th. He beat the third-seeded kid, pinned him in the first period. Guy wasn't too happy. He thought that, I guess even if you look at where you're seeding all that, yeah, you're thinking that you're going to win this pretty easy, and then Isaac comes out there and puts him on his back and pins him.
Yeah.
So, so anyhow, then he had to wrestle the number 2 seeded guy, and again, another very good wrestler, and like you said, this is also one of those guys that had that cutback that, in fact,
they must be practice partners or something, because they're both hitting it.
And well, they're both same weight class, yeah. So yeah, they're probably working together on that. And Isaac gave up a bunch of points, but he came back and battled back and fought back, and in a high scoring match, ended up winning 16-12, and and that's the number 2 seeded guy, and guy has a very good record too, and so and that's a varsity record too he's got. They're both their 26 pounders they're the same team, like we talked about, both from O'Neill.
I think one is normally their 20 pounder, if I remember right. That they moved up for
20 or 32. Yeah, I don't remember which one for sure, but but yeah, they talked about that those were varsity records that they had when they seeded them, and that's why they were seeded 1 and 2.
Right.
Whereas Isaac was seeded 11th, and Matthew was seeded higher, because Isaac didn't really have much of a varsity record to go by right now. But anyhow, great job. He got into the finals, and that had that kid that beat Matthew earlier, and the kid's tough. I mean,
he was a thrower.
He was a thrower, and that's not Isaac's style, and so that didn't go well. But Isaac battled in there, and Isaac had him on his back, and dang, that was close to being pinned. I don't know. The guy got out somehow, but Isaac just about pulled it off, and knocking off 3, 2, and 1. But anyhow, he's wrestling real well right now, and you know, we normally we're done with our wrestle offs at this point, but because of Matthew being sick last week, we couldn't get it in, and you know, so they're going to have that this week coming up, and so who knows who's going to be wrestling districts. Both guys are wrestling real well.
They've been really close on their wrestle offs all season long.
Very much, and you know, the one thing is Isaac is you know, he had to shake off some stuff earlier in the year, and he's just constantly getting better. So, you know, who knows how that one's going to go? Well, we're going to find out in a couple days here, but you know, real happy for Isaac to be able to come in there and you know, after a tough year with starting off with a you know, an injury and not able to start or wrestle right away, and a little bit behind on everything, and he's just been catching up, and I think he's there now, and at the right time, and we'll see what happens. Next we go on to Evan, and you know, Evan you know, didn't get any wins here, but you know, he come up and he battles, and you know, and I hope that Evan, you know, Evan never wrestled before this year, so he's a brand new wrestler. I hope he's having a good time, and at least, and you know, he comes out next year and keeps working hard, because he's a real hard worker. He does a great job in the weight room in the fall. I'm really pleased with him and his work ethic there. Does a great job in the room. He works hard. He tries to listen. He's just experience-wise, he's behind, and based off where his experience is, he's done a very good job, I thought. And I think that with his work ethic, by the time he's a senior, you know, he probably one of those guys that might be contributing to our team, and you know, in a way that you know, we have guys in the past that maybe started late, but they're in there helping our team win duels and maybe state duels, and you know, and who knows whether he's, you know, at the individual state tournament, if he's qualifying or win medals there too. But I think he's a guy that someday can help us out.
Yep.
Right now he's learning, and this is a, you know, even though he didn't win any matches, it's a great experience for him to see where he's at and how much more he got to go. And we got Robert. Robert finished second. The guy who beat him in the finals is a pretty tough wrestler. You know, Robert, he had a good tournament overall. He had a couple tech falls, actually a pin and then a tech fall in his first two matches, and you know, the tech fall was against a solid wrestler, you know, from Norfolk Catholic that had a very similar record to Robert, and Robert ended up getting the tech fall on him, so that was good. And then in the finals, guy was long and lanky, and Robert got in on some shots, and had a tough time with that leverage on the guy, and you know, Robert's got one weakness. We've been talking and over and over and over and over, and he got caught in that again and got pinned. So we got to keep working on that. You know, it's we just need to get that better. And anyhow, so you know, overall good tournament for him, and you know, and hopefully next week we can pull through and get to state, because you know, like we mentioned earlier, he's got a tough bracket, but the positive is you know, that's the thing, they can make it to state, things get a lot easier.
Yeah, when you have the tough brackets at district, it makes it easier to start off with at state. Obviously, you get to the semis and forward, it's tough, but yeah, that first round isn't as bad when you're in the tough district. You just got to get there.
Yeah, we've been there before. I remember we had a state champion one year. It was 2007, the year we won state. Our guy got fourth in our district, and all four guys were pretty equal, and we were coming off of an injury, and you know, with not a lot of practice time, and so we're a little bit, I wouldn't say out of shape, but a little bit. When you can't practice, I mean, you're not going to be in best shape, but timing was off a little bit, and you end up getting fourth in district, and you got the state that year, and end up all four guys are in the semifinals, and we went on and won the tournament, and we're a state champ. So
I think it was reversed from what it was at districts, if I remember right.
pretty close, yeah. So, yeah, because we had to, since we got fourth, we had to wrestle the district champion in the semis and beat him. So he went down, and I don't know if he got third or fourth. I don't remember, but either way, that worked out. So, you have a tough district, you got to get through, and then things are set up better for you at state. So that's what we got to hope for. Next we got Nico. Nico's another one of those guys. It's just very new to wrestling, and in the varsity tournament, it's tough for someone who's very new to wrestling. But this is good experience for him, and the guys who beat him all had good records, winning records, and so just a tough draw for him. But good to see him out there trying and working and to gain that experience. And when you're young, keep at it, keep working. I've seen guys that come in as freshmen. You say, just in your mind, you're like, this is. It's great to have them out, but nothing, I don't have high expectations. But when they work hard and keep working hard, and we'll do everything we can to help them out, that you'll never know what they turn into. And all of a sudden, you got this kid that's helping the team and going to state and stuff like that. And and Nico's kind of at that stage right now. Just keep working, keep learning, and you never know when you mature physically what's going to happen.
Right.
Nick Law, he's he's a sophomore, but it's first year wrestling. He didn't wrestle last year as a freshman, and he had some youth experience. Nick just needs to, he's got some talent. You could see that at times. It's kind of flashes of talent here and there, and he just needs to be consistent. He's not really consistent right now, and he went to 1 and 2, and I like to see a little more consistency out of him, and more time. He just needs some time, and needs to work hard, and things will come down the road. Colby wins the tournament, first place. Nice tournament. He got a couple pins to get into the finals, and beat a decent kid from Norris by pinning him, and dominated the match too. So that was good to see. And yes, we wrestled him earlier, and I don't think we pinned him the first couple times, but we got him this time. And then he had a tough kid in the finals. Guy's got 42 wins. From Norfolk Catholic, home gym and everything, and the guy looked the part. He was strong and athletic, and in fact he got the takedown on Colby right away, and kind of looking like, this is going to be a rough one. But Colby stayed in there, battled and wrestled hard, and if Colby wrestles like this, like he did in that match, he's going to go to state.
He just wrestled solid the whole way through, got a couple turns, and really just kept it on the whole match.
Yeah, and wore the guy down, and finally started, at first he was having a tough time turning, but he kept battling, and wore him down, and finally started getting the turns, and had a good solid win. I mean, the guy's got 42 wins. The guy has won a lot of matches, so he's a good wrestler.
And really the score was even more. Colby gave a late takedown just in the last 5 or so seconds, just to not give up a throw or anything crazy there.
Sure, yeah, and and this Colby ended up winning 11-6. So
and then he came around and
good solid win and for him, and against a quality opponent, and so hopefully that carries over to next week. If he wrestles like that, and certainly we got some things there too, and one thing that while we're talking Colby, I guess. Kind of divert off the topic, but your mom asked me yesterday, said something to me yesterday, and I had to remind her that that's not how we do things at Bennington. But she was like, you should schedule and no disrespect to any teams there, but an easier tournament like that, pad your schedule for districts. So have better seasons at districts. And I said, what? That's not how we wrestle. That's not how we do it at Bennington. He says,
We've never done that.
It was a fun day, but they're going to learn a lot more in the long run. And the reason why we had a lot of success is because of the strength of schedule, because they're tested and they get better that way. And then you're better in the end. And most people, sure, we have a lot of young kids and a lot of freshmen and EMC was tough and we didn't make it to the state duels and believe me, it was hanging on my head all day yesterday. And, we're wrestling here, but boy, wish we were somewhere else, but, we're going to do the best we can here. But anyhow, so, and some people might think, well, why don't we do that? Why do we need to wrestle tough competition week after week after week? Well, that's what makes you better, and that's what sharpens you. And right now we're young, and that tough schedule's tough on young kids, but someday those guys are going to be seniors, and all this tough competition is going to make a big difference for them when they're juniors and seniors, and they'll never remember. Or, they might remember, but they'll never care about what happened their freshman year when they're winning state medals and teams wrestling for championships. And I think these guys these freshmen. I really feel that these guys will probably have a good chance at bringing some hardware with what we got right now. And who knows what happens with people moving into the district, But the guys we currently have on our team and what we currently have in their middle school, I honestly think there's a chance that they're going to be bringing hardware home from, the state tournament someday, whether it's winning it all or not. Maybe bring another trophy. But anyhow, I think they're going to be bringing hardware home, and so in the long run they're going to be better off, and they're going to remember those times more than they remember what happened their freshman year. Yep. And so that's why we do it, why we wrestle the tough competition. Plus I've seen, well, mostly because we do it to the guys. It's like Colby's match, and that's what brings it all up. The guy's 42-7, and he's wrestling a guy that's 29-12. I mean, he has half the number of losses and a lot more wins, and he goes into the match. And anybody looking at that says, no question, Norfolk Catholic's going to win this one easy.
And the guy looked a lot bigger and stronger. It seemed like, at least, past the eye test sort of thing.
And so, in our experience in the tough competition, we end up, that's why we, have a lot of guys who maybe don't have the records that we could have, knock off others. And we did a lot when we were in Class C because we wrestled a lot of B, and we ended up going to, our districts were like this. We're going against Class C teams and wrestling very tough competition. And so anyhow, that's kind of why we do that. Plus, another thing that brings up too, one of Colby's matches, I think it was his first match, he had a kid who's, not the best kid. I, don't know anything about him. Maybe he just started wrestling. I don't know, and no offense to him, but an easy win for Colby. He got in a shot. He didn't finish it properly, but he got the takedown. Okay. We had a discussion afterwards, said, hey, you got to finish your takedown this way because, it worked, yes, because the guy fell over. You're much better than him. So, but against the best wrestlers, you're going to have to finish it properly. And so I think he recognized that and learned from it. So this is where the easy tournaments hurt you, because you can get away with slop and win. And I'm not saying that's what happened with us this weekend. We got away with a lot of slop and won anyhow. I think the guys wrestled with good technique for the most part, and that's why we were pulling upsets. If you look on paper, I mean, we pulled, I didn't count them up, but we probably pulled 15, 20 up or more upsets if we look at records alone. So anyhow, that's why we wrestle the tough competition, not go to easy tournaments all the time and pad records. And I've seen it before where teams do that, and they have great a great year, have a great record, and then don't even go to state.
Yep.
And then they're disappointed and upset. Well, I'd rather wrestle a tough competition in a year, not have quite as good a record, but bring home, make it to state, bring home medals at state, make the state duels, bring trophies home. That's why we do it.
Yep.
So back to our guys and better move along here. Craig, I run out of voice here. Tristan did a nice job, I thought. Tristan's another one of those guys who just started wrestling recently. When I say recently, I know middle school. He'd wrestled middle school, but when you do middle school only and no club stuff, middle school is just an introduction, and it's important to have because a lot of these guys we wouldn't have on our team if it wouldn't be for middle school. But it really doesn't get you very far. Experience-wise, to be ready to compete at a high school level, at a high level. So anyhow, he's one of those guys who little experience and he's coming along. He certainly does have a ways to go, but one of those that you're watching him and thinking, I think someday something may be there. Just need some time. He was in there wrestle varsity for us. He moved Zach Utek up to 152 to fill in, because Luke didn't make the tournament. But, Tristan did a nice job. He came one match away from getting a medal there. And the guy who beat him had 41 wins, and so that's a tough kid there.
Well,
but
he only lost to one kid, just lost to him twice.
Yeah, so... yeah, that's true. That was his only losses were the same guy.
Yeah,
and that's unfortunate. That guy's pretty good. For Tristan, he got a couple pins in there and helped us out, and so nice to see that. And he's wrestling varsity guys and in varsity tournament and goes 2-2 for us and scored some points. So good to see that for him. To get that experience. And we move up to Zach. Zach moved up to 152. Going into the tournament, obviously I'm concerned about winning the tournament as a team and trying to see how we can maximize stuff. And I sat there Friday night looking over teams and stuff like that, trying to figure things out because we had a couple holes. Decide what we're going to do. One of them was at 52 and one was at 285, and 285 was probably an easy decision anyhow, but because we had no other choice. But even then at 52, we could have left Zach down at 45, and but to be honest, looking at 45, there was 4 or 5 very solid kids in that bracket. I thought it was going to be tough for Zach to medal there. In fact, the guy would have been 5th seed. Zach already lost him earlier in the year, but not that he couldn't beat him this time. But I looked at 52 and looked like we got a better chance here at moving Zach up, and Zach may have a better chance of getting a medal. Mm-hmm. The unfortunate thing was that somebody was entered in the wrong weight class, so they put him in at 50. They fixed it then and put him at 52, so that made it a little tougher. Then we got the tougher draw. I think if he was on the other side of the bracket, I think he gets a medal. The top 3 were pretty solid in that 152-pound weight class, and Zach was on the opposite side, so he had to wrestle the 3rd-seeded guy to get a medal, and that guy ended up getting 3rd. Won pretty easily in his 3rd-place match. I watched it, and in fact, he pinned his guy there, and Zach lost to that guy 9-2, and that guy is a pretty decent wrestler, and so, I really appreciate Zach. He had no problem going up to help our team out, and and I thought it gave him a better chance. But sometimes things just don't work out like you'd hope, and you don't get the best draw you hope to get. So anyhow, that's kind of what happened there. But it's always nice to see guys willing to do things for the team, and really appreciate that. And
yeah,
out of Zach. Then we got Hunter Thompson at 160. Hunter finishes 4th. That's his first varsity medal ever. So great for him to get a varsity medal. You know, and you know, just looking through this, he did a nice job, and you know, again, when you're looking at records and things, you know, the kid who beat him the first time, you know, from Crete, very tough. I think he was his number 1 seed. You know, Hunter beat the number 4 seed. So that was important, I thought, for him to have a chance of getting a medal.
Right.
Because he's going to have to either beat, how the brackets work, he's got to beat the number 4 seed to get a medal or a number 3. I'd rather take that chance at number 4. Mm-hmm. And he did. He got the win there, and a solid win, 12-3, a big win over the 4 seed. But he draws the number 1 guy then next in the semis, loses to him, but comes back through and does a nice job. Gets a pin in consolation semis to earn himself a medal, a 4th place. And then even in the 3rd place match, I mean, his kid has almost 30 wins, 28-10. You know, and Hunter's just a little punky freshman wrestling at a higher weight where guys are stronger and older and more mature. And he really battled him well. I mean, he ended up losing 5-3, you know, close match. And, you know, Hunter's one of those guys that, you know, watch out for him. I mean, he's got some talent. He's got some ability. You know, he needs to focus a little better in practice, but he does have the talent and ability, and he does have a good work ethic. He just focus sometimes probably needs to work on. You know, and if he starts to learn some technique, you know, he's a guy that I think you know, his senior year, people are going to wonder where this guy came from, and so good for him and to get himself a medal here, and a lot of big things from in the future. You know, we had Joe in here. Joe's been showing a lot of improvement from where he came from middle school to now is huge, and you know, he didn't have the best tournament. He ended up losing, you know, by 1 point in the consolations to you know, knock him out of the tournament. But you know, Joe's been coming along. You know, and just got to keep working hard in practice. And again, you never know what happens when guys mature. And so, move on to Tyler Hangley.
Tyler and Logan had an interesting bracket in the end.
Oh yeah,
5-man round robin, so things can get funky.
Yeah, and if you're looking at the tournament, you'll see some brackets and then some round robins. What they did was, if there's 5 guys or less, they put them in a round robin, and there were 2 weight classes that were that way, 170 and 182, and so you end up wrestling everybody, and then you figure it out from there who wins based off of some criteria. The main thing is record, and there's multiple levels of criteria. So if your records are tied, then you have some tiebreaker stuff. But you know, Tyler just started wrestling this year, never wrestled before. Physically, you look at him, he's well built. And you know, looks somewhat athletic. So, but wrestling's a difficult sport to pick up and learn in a short period of time. You know, many different situations you can get into, and positions and reactions and all that are just you can't just teach it. You gotta wrestle it,
right?
And learn it. We can teach the technique, but we can't teach them how to react in 100 situations that could happen when you have a single leg, you know, or whatever you're at. So, but Tyler's coming along. He got 4th. You know, that's the first varsity medal that he's earned. You know, Logan wrestled him and got the pin on him, and I don't know if that's just mental or what, but Logan seemed not having problems. But after that, Tyler did a great job. In fact, Tyler beat the guy who got first place.
Right.
Beat him 9-8, and you know, Tyler, it pretty much came down. Tyler went 2-2. Won 2, lost 2, and based off the criteria, which I'm not sure, you know, I didn't go back and look at who all won and what all, how that transpired, but He ended up 4th place, and ironically beating the number 1 guy, and I'm assuming that guy beat everybody else.
Yeah, in that match, if I remember right, Tyler was down not by a lot, but he was down pretty much most of the match. The guy got a pretty decent lead in the first period, and then the second period, it started tightening up a bit, and halfway through the second period and right in the beginning of the third period, Tyler really started, coming on in that match and taking it to the guy, and I think he scored like 3 takedowns in a row to finish off the match and to win it. Took him down, I don't know, about a minute in and let him up, and took him down again with about 30 seconds. We said, he's got momentum now. Cut him. Let's go win the match now and not go to
because it was tied at that point. So
rather than try to win it, ride him out and then maybe give it up escape late, let's cut him loose and go get the win now, while we've got the momentum.
Yeah, and I think he got the takedown with just not a lot of time left. Probably
like 10 or 7 seconds.
Less than 10 seconds left. Yeah, and won the match. So good for him. And he's a guy that, if he sticks it out next year, and continue to develop, he could be one of those guys, that we've had that come out late in their career and help us out. And so real good for him, and he's coming along this year real well. Logan Burmester finished 3rd. He also went 2-2, but I'm sure one of the tiebreaker criteria is he beat Tyler, so that's what put him over the top. And Logan almost beat the guy who got first also. He lost by 1 point. And that was a kind of the opposite, where that guy got a late takedown. Just, seconds left.
Yep.
And it was you don't want to discourage a guy, and we teach guys to, keep wrestling even when you got the lead and time's running out. You gotta continue wrestling, not try stalling or blocking off. And Logan was doing that. He was trying not to stall, and I even say, hey, if there's an opportunity to score. Even if you're ahead by 1, make it a 3-point lead and finish the match.
Right.
Well, I think he was doing that, but he didn't take a good shot. Had his head down, and the guy was able to spin behind him, and and maybe if he just stood out there and circled, he might have won the thing. But I think more times you're going to be better off continuing wrestling than trying to stall out a match. You just need to learn how to manage it. And you don't need to dive in on a bad shot. You want to work your setups and take good shots.
Right.
Or keep working your setups, keep working your positioning, and that'll a lot of times keep that guy from being able to score. So it's just how manage that last seconds of the match. If he wins that one, I assume he gets first. I don't know.
I think because the Norfolk Catholic kid, I think, beat the Mount Michael kid that.
Yeah, so, I don't know how it all worked out, and I guess we're not going to go in, dig that up unless you really want to, but anyhow, good for Logan to go out there and battle out there and get a 3rd place. Again, that Norfolk Catholic guy had a winning record. And Logan was right with him, and Tyler beat him, so Logan's been having a tough year because it seems like everywhere we go, it's a tough bracket. EMC, and even in our duels, it's like, man, what did you do to the wrestling gods that gave you these draws? So maybe that'll pay off for him next year when he's a senior, that he'll be even more seasoned and have a good year. But then we've got Carter Lurch. Real happy for Carter. Carter's a guy we always have fun with. He's always got a smile on his face and fun to have around. And he's developing in his technique too. He's coming. Obviously, he needs more physical maturity. Nothing anybody can do about that. But you can't lift certain weights. You can't do anything to go through puberty and start growing hair in the armpits and muscles. The only thing you do with muscles is hit the weight room. And so maturity, you can't control that. So. But he has been coming along this year, and real happy for him. He ended up 4th place. He beat Norfolk Catholic kid to get the that fourth place, and you know, and he was happy, and it was good for him, and a good experience again to get that varsity competition.
Yep.
Then we go on to Buzz. Buzz sets a school record with a 5-second pin. That is very difficult, and actually, you know, it's not just like, oh, he got lucky there. Well, I mean,
Buzz did what Buzz does.
Buzz has had several pins that have been less than 10 seconds this year, because he comes out off the whistle. He's really aggressive coming at guys and gets some takedowns real fast. And if he catches you on your back, he might put you away. And that's what happened. He came after the kid. I mean, the whistle blew and boom, he was there. And because you think about it, it's a 2-second pin. So in order to get a 5-second pin, you have to have that guy on his back in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And
the ref down there looking at it.
And the official moved fast enough to get down there. You know, some of the older refs, it might have been a 7-second pin. Fortunately, had a young ref that was able to move quick and get into position. But anyhow, it was a legitimate 5-second pin and set the school record. And I don't know if that's ever going to be broken. It's going to be very tough. I did see a 3-second pin once, but that was a whole weird situation, and that was. But anyhow,
well, I know Andy Christensen had argued that his 6-second pin that held the record for a while was faster. The ref just didn't get down there fast enough. So
yeah, and I
it takes a little bit of
see
luck.
that, but yeah, it's luck along with that. But anyhow, nice for Buzz to get in the record books. And you know, he got a couple of the pins, and then his finals match, you know, against a good, solid kid from Crete that Buzz beat earlier in the year. And I know that kid was kind of on the list from some of the Raiders that said that was one of the kids they were considering for rankings, and so he's solid, and Buzz is winning that match. And that's, you know, I mentioned something earlier about that at the EMC. Same thing. He gets in a certain position that, you know, and gets himself in trouble. Something we got to work on, and part of that's his aggressiveness that he goes after, which we don't want to stop. We want that aggressiveness. He just needs to, you know, be careful about the position he gets into, and he gets caught in that, and then he's on his back, and he fought for a while, but you know, against a tough wrestler like that, they're going to get the pin if you're in that situation.
And it happened early in the second period. He got in that position, so it was a long time to fight, and he fought for a while there, but.
Right, but anyhow, other than that, you know, good tournament for Buzz, and you know, and hopefully that helps him learn. I mean, you know, obviously it's happened a few times this year, a couple times this year, but sometimes more times it happens, you finally start figuring things out, and you know, and I think it helps us to analyze it better and figure it out. But if it happens one time and it never happens again, you don't even think about it. But here it's had up it a couple times in a row now. We just got to work on that. Then we got Benton. Benton wins his championship, gets first place. You know, and his bracket was a good, solid bracket. Now he had a bye. He only had 2 matches. That's kind of unusual.
Yep.
But because he had a bye the first round, and semifinal match had a decent kid from Norfolk Catholic. Got a pin there, and you know, on the other side of the bracket, he had 2 kids that've been rated. You know, one of them's currently rated number 3 in Class B, but Benton got the first seed, and when we first got there, you know, looking at records, the Norfolk Catholic, one of the very first things he said to me was, that 95-pound weight class. What happened there? That you're going to get a seat over these other 2 guys, and they have much better records. Because you beat them. I said, what happened there? And I said, well, Benton's kind of hot and cold at times, and you know, when he's on, and he's good. You know, and I said, you know, we can't just, and you really look at his losses this year. You know, they've been all to good wrestlers, and many of them he was either winning or very close. So if he wrestles with his style and what he's good at, he's gonna win a state medal this year. If he gets outside of that box, then who knows? So, and I think he understands what that box is now, and we've been working with him all year long on that, and he did that nice job this weekend, because that Lomax from Crete that he beat in the finals, beat the other kid who's rated number 3 currently at Meyer, and actually Benton beat Meyer earlier in the year, and that's why he got the seed over over those two. And Benton won it 8-3. And, that wasn't a lucky pin. There wasn't, it was, not where it was and Benton really controlled the match. It was 8-3, but I think, Benton pretty much dominated that match. So, good win for Benton, and again, he had a good week of practice, I thought.
Yep.
I thought he was practicing as good as he's ever practiced this year, and so I think that contributes to, like I say, to guys on the weekend how they do, and so we just got to keep that up the next 2 weeks for him.
Yep. And
next we got Garrett. Garrett comes in there and gets first place, 3 pins, and wins the championship. Garrett looked good, and Garrett, like I said, Garrett's always tough to score on, number 1, and stays in good position, and when if he can wrestle with confidence, I think he can beat anybody in the state, obviously there's some very tough guys out there that have beaten him already, but he's been in every single match that he's lost, and so he's going to have to wrestle a perfect match against some of those guys, but he's capable. So, yep. Good tournament for Garrett there. And the last but not the least, we got Jake Steyer. Jake, we bumped him up to 285. Aiden couldn't make it, so we were able. So Friday night, I was looking, and the nice thing was Jake had no idea this was coming. I don't believe, at least because I didn't talk to him about it Friday night, because I hadn't had a chance to look at things, because as of Friday practice, the start of practice, we were expecting Aiden to be there, and something came up that he's unable to compete, and basically he's got a little skin thing that fortunately be taken care of. And good thing we caught it early, so he'll be fine for districts. And so I looked at the brackets and like, all right, well, let's move Jake up. He's a light kid for 285, 216 pounds. So he had some big boys.
Yeah, it showed in a few of those matches. He's a bit smaller than a few of those guys.
Yeah, and so we put him in, and he gets a bye the first match, and guess what? He gets to draw Riley Moses from Fillmore Central, future Husker football player. And Jake's probably saying thanks for putting me in here. But real proud of Jake. He never flinched when I told him that we're going to move him up, and just okay, he's willing to take it on, and so real happy that he was willing to do that. And I've seen Jake grow a lot this year. He wrestled in 8th grade for us, didn't in 7th. We had to talk him into it in 7th grade. We talked him into it this year, but I've seen him grow a lot this year, especially. From the beginning of the year, where he was at on his technique, and I was starting to question myself. I was like, well, I know he's a good athlete, but we gotta get better at our technique somewhere, and I gotta remember these guys are freshmen. Yep. I'm thinking, at the senior level, seniors and juniors and seniors, but I was like, man, I got to see some improvement, and by golly, as the year went along, and right now he's wrestling at a real good level, for his experience. He's just, again, he's a young freshman that, he when he goes through, puberty, and all of a sudden things are going to change fast.
Well, and he'll be a little bit bigger. He won't be 70
Sure.
pounds lighter than the weight class.
Yeah, and he does a great job in the weight room, and he's going to put on some muscle, and he's got a frame to put it on, and it reminds me a lot of Shea Smith for us when he was a freshman, and Shea ended up being a state champion for us, and similar type. You look at his body as a freshman, and you're like, I think Shea had hips wider than his shoulders, and now Shea. I mean, obviously Shea was a Division I football player and a state champion for us, but so similar types of body and starting off where they're at. The difference between him, Shea had some more wrestling experience growing up, so he's a little bit more ahead at this point, but not that far. So I think Jake has a great future for us. It sounds like he's having a good time, and I'm real happy to hear that, because he's a guy I think down the road's gonna be another one of those where people go, where'd this guy come from? And good for us. But anyhow, him and Riley, that didn't go so well. Riley's a big guy, and like I said, he's going to be playing at the Huskers next year, and Jake's just a freshman coming into high school. So not a fair matchup, but then Jake came back the next match and won his next match, and that guy didn't look all that bad. I mean, obviously that guy's been working out with Riley Moses all year long, so he's got a partner to work with that is pretty darn good. But Jake got a win there, and that put him in for fourth place, third and fourth place, and so got himself his first varsity medal. Great for Jake. And then he ran into a Norfolk Catholic kid, and that kid's pretty tough, first of all. Second of all, if we heard right in the meeting, that kid came down from about 400 pounds. He was weighing about 400 pounds at some point during the football season, and he had to lose that weight and that's why the guy only had 4 matches coming in, because he couldn't wrestle. He was overweight, and overweight at 285 is pretty big. Yeah. And I'm sure Jake can agree that guy was big.
Yeah, I remember
Jake got underneath him, and the guy kind of laid on him, and that was about it. So anyhow, real proud of Jake for going out there and not being afraid to go up and wrestle a bigger weight, being so young, and gives himself a medal and helps our team. So anyhow, long list of guys, a lot we covered there, especially this late in the season. It's good to cover all the guys. Varsity usually gets all the fame, but our JV guys, they're every bit as important. A lot of those guys are the future of the team, and not only that, they're currently important on the team, because they're the ones that are helping our varsity guys get better every day in practice. So real proud of our whole team for going out there and wrestling well this weekend, and really getting after it. And one more thing with that too is we got a huge compliment from a Hall of Fame coach, Paul Sock. If anybody knows anything about Nebraska high school wrestling, former Winside coach, is retired now, and he was helping out at the tournament for Norfolk Catholic, and he even had a nice compliment at the end. Said he enjoyed watching the Bennington kids wrestle. He says those guys, they fought and they wrestled hard, and it was fun to watch them. So real, when you have someone like that says that means a lot, and so that all goes back to the kids going out and doing it. So anyhow, we're way overdue here, Craig, but
that's okay. We said it'd be a double dose.
That's right. Making up for last week.
Yep. So as a team, like we said, took first of the tournament, was 62 points ahead of Norris, who took second. So good win for the team. I think hopefully the guys see that if they practice well and practice hard during the week, it'll translate over in the weekend, so they keep it up the next 2 weeks. Just a reminder, speaking of going into the end of the season, if you're looking for a clear bag for state, you need to go to midwestdesigns.org this week. Don't wait till next week because there's a chance we might not be able to get it in time for the state tournament. So check it out. Sponsor the show, Midwest Designs. MidwestDesigns.org is the website there. Just looking forward to the coming week. JV only has 3 practices this week. Varsity's got 4 with the districts coming up. I think we've touched on how they need to practice all week. Nothing really enlightening there. JV goes to Lincoln on Monday for a late season JV tournament.
Yeah, good tournament for them. A mix of a lot of teams. A lot of Lincoln teams are Class A. A lot of B schools around the area. There's I don't know how many teams are there. There's probably close to 20 teams.
Yeah, it feels like quite a few.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily bracket them in traditional brackets, so you're not going to see 14 brackets that are huge and going all night long. Like, the Elkhorn, they put them in, I think 4-man brackets. They got a unusual way of doing it, but they do cut them down to where I think they only get 3 matches and they're done, and they have a lot more mats. So, but it's a good experience for those guys again to get some more mat time. We're getting towards the end of the season here. The guys who are not wrestling at districts need to have that competition too, and you never know. Like I said, if somebody gets sick or injured, and we need those guys to jump in, they will. But they'll practice all the way through the state tournament.
Yep.
We keep, so, parents, you're listening. We just so you know, we continue practicing all the way through the state tournament with including our JVs. I know there's a lot of schools that don't do that. We started that many years ago when I took over as head coach. I thought one of the main things is it gives them a few more days of practice. Number one. Number two, it gives sometimes you have your varsity guys need some help. You need some partners to work with and get them ready for state. And then probably one of the most important things is the mentality of our wrestlers. We want them to. We don't want the state tournament to be made in something outlandishly special. I know there's teams that color their hair, dye their hair, do all kinds of things so they have state qualifiers, and then they go down the state and do nothing. The state tournament's it's a tournament. It's every match is just like any other wrestling match, like the Bennington Invitational, the first of the year. It's you wrestle in a 30-foot circle, and that's where you wrestle. You're not. It's just a bigger facility and obviously a state tournament. But mentally, you gotta look at it. If you put it on the pedestal, and that's where guys underperform at state, is when they put it on a pedestal as something that's it's out there, something different. It's not. It's certainly there's some differences, but in the end, you're wrestling a 30-foot circle. You're wrestling an opponent across from you that you've probably seen before at some point during the season, maybe not. And the guys who continue mentally thinking, wrestling like they always have all year long, you can be fine. And that's why we practice all the way, because we don't want to change anything up. And plus it's just good to have those kids around.
Yep. So Friday and Saturday this week we have districts heading to Platteview. Little closer than last year. Don't have to quite go all the way to Beatrice, but down to Platteview there. Pretty nice, decent relatively new facility, I guess. But one tough district. That's for sure.
Yep, it is. I guess we'll talk more about that next week, I suppose.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully. We got Scott, Blair, Columbus Lakeview, Plattsmouth. Seward's always got some tough kids. Beatrice always tough kids. Nebraska City, we see them a couple times. Well, really only once this year. So tough district.
Yep. But you got to wrestle them all. So we'll try to get ready as much as we can and see what happens.
Yep. And like we mentioned before, you go through a tough district and it's going to make state a little bit easier to start with. Usually, you have the tough bracket at districts, and it kind of separates out those tough guys to start the tournament.
Yeah. And you know what? That's why we wrestle the tough season that we do.
Mm-hmm.
That going back to that one his little comments we had earlier about why don't we pad our schedules to get better seeds? Well, because you get better seeds and you get beat out anyhow. What does it matter?
Right.
We prepared for it. Our schedule prepares us for it, and so it's nothing new to our guys. So that's the positive about that. But we're still going to have to wrestle well to do what we hope to do.
Yep. Anything else you want to touch on for districts?
No, I think that's good for now. I mean, we'll, it's 4:00. It starts on Friday. Saturday, I can't remember if it's 9 or 10, but anyhow, hopefully we got a good crowd showing up, cheering our guys on, and helping our guys wrestle.
Yep. Doesn't look like anybody's sent us anything new in the last couple minutes or a couple hours, but I don't know if you have anything else people have asked you to touch on.
No, I haven't. I've gotten a couple texts while I'm sitting here. I feel my pocket buzzing, but so maybe I'll check real quick in case something's important, but I don't think it is. I think it's just other stuff. Nope. I don't think any questions there.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up just shy of 2 hours. So almost a double dose. Next week, 2:00 on Sunday, as always, we're going to wrap up, recap the district tournament. Probably have a lot to talk about with that tournament. Going to probably fill the whole hour, considering how important districts is and recapping on everybody in that. And then a little preview for state. So make sure you tune in, and we'll see you next week on Sunday at 2:00.
Yep.